Good evening and welcome to our live crafting session today. Just squeezing myself in. There we go. So good evening and welcome to you. My name's Jenny McCormack and I'm an independent Stampin Up demonstrator and I'm based in the market town of Brackley. Now, according to my screen, I'm not actually live, so I'm just going to have a look on Facebook and see if Facebook says we are, which is very bizarre. Fingers crossed we are, but it's not showing on my screen, which is always slightly worrying. Let's have a quick look and see, and if it is, I'll just go with that. Okay, it looks good, despite what it says on the screen. Okay, so thank you so much. If you joined me yesterday, you will have seen me make two simple cards with these lovely designer papers. These papers are available as from Thursday of this week, and they're one of our offerings for free products between the 5th of July, 5th of January, hi Tracy, and the end of February. And they are really pretty papers. If you love wildflowers, then you will love the papers. I showed them yesterday, so I'm not going to show them again in detail, other than one side obviously has all of these lovely wildflowers on. And then the other side has a mixture of watercolour effect and smaller patterns. So we have these lovely designs on the back. So nice, lovely spring colours. Let me show you the cards that we made yesterday. And that was these two here. So we've got the one on the right, which is the all green card, and then this one on the left, and I cut the panel from this sheet of card that has 6 of these oval designs on, and it also has 2 narrow rectangles of flowers, and it's one of those that I'm going to use this evening. And I did say make a nice bookmark, and that's exactly what I'm going to do with one of them this evening. So that's what we created yesterday. You can catch those on YouTube or on Facebook. And what I'm going to do today is use this panel here. Hi Carol, and Happy New Year to you. So for this one, it's a really simple card. I'm just going to use a 1/6 of the piece of designer paper. I am going to pop it through an embossing folder. Now it does have some texture in the background already, but I'm going to add some additional texture, and I'm going to layer this up on crushed curry and rich raspberry, and those are 2 of the colours in this colour scheme piece that I've cut. Oh, okay, thank you. Let me just turn up the volume. Thanks, Carol. Right, let me know if that's any better. Hopefully it is. I was playing around with the volume, trying to get it sorted, so let me know if that's better. Give me a thumbs up, or just a comment is fine. So this is going to be my layers, and then I've got a small piece for a sentiment, or you could stamp the sentiment onto here. If you are embossing the background, oh, just a bit better, is that all? Oh dear. Let me turn, that one's full. Let me try that. It's right at the top, just before it goes into the red, so hoping that will do the job. If not, you can pop the captions on and read the captions. I know it's not quite the same, especially as it's somewhat delayed. So if you wanted to put this through an embossing folder, but you wanted to stamp a sentiment, you would need to stamp the sentiment first, because it's very difficult to stamp onto an embossed part of the image. Thanks, Carol. So I'm going to use the Fern embossing folder, and this is a 3D embossing folder available in our annual catalogue. And I'm just going to pop this in, and as a general rule, you want the Stampin' Up logo on the front side, and that is the ideal side for embossing. If you're adding ink and things like that, then there's a slightly different way to do it. But I'm just going to pop that through there, and I've got my embossing machine just next to me. And I'm just going to use a base plate, the embossing folder with the hinge at the top so that enters into the machine first, and our embossing plate, the grey one, as it's a thick 3D embossing folder. Okay, just going to pop that through. Very satisfying. Okay. So now I've got an embossed image behind. So I'm going to pop it on here, and I'm hoping that you can see some of that embossing. If I tilt it away from the light, hopefully you can see some of it. It is all over. If I wanted it just on the top, I could have positioned the embossing folder at that point. But I do want it all over, and it just gives a really nice impression of the, the wild flowers going sort of all over and behind. So let's pop that onto there, and you can use seal, or you can use tape, or you can use wet glue, whichever you prefer. I'm just using seal all the way around. You don't really need to put it right the way along the edge, but because it's embossed, I want to make sure I've got a really nice strong edge, because obviously it's not a flat surface anymore. Okay, so I'm going to pop this onto my crushed curry layer. Just take out that errant cat hair. I did have to kick the kitten off the chair again today before I did my live. Okay, so just giving that a really nice smooth down because it is embossed, and this is going to go straight onto my card. So this makes a really quick card, as I mentioned yesterday. From each sheet you can get 6 cards, and in the pack you get 2 of this sheet. So you could easily quickly create 12 cards from this paper. Obviously you need your base cards and things like that, but 12 standard size cards. And I'm going to add my sentiment this time on, I just got an odd die cut here that I had as a spare yesterday. Hi Moretta, Happy New Year to you, and thank you for joining us today. I know you joined us yesterday as well. Okay, no worries. So this I'm going to put down here because I do like this empty space up here, and as I said, if you wanted to stamp it, stamp a sentiment on here, you do need to do that before you emboss it. And this is a 3D embossing folder, which means that you have different levels of depth across the whole card. So some of these ferns are higher than others, giving it a really nice effect. Appreciate in this light you won't necessarily see very much of that. I'm going to make another thank you card, and I think I still have the thank you here. I do indeed, and I probably still got Mossy Meadow, so I will use that. So I hope everybody is well and has had a good day. I know a lot of people are obviously back at work again today. I was convinced it was Wednesday this morning, which is slightly peculiar because it is only Tuesday. Okay, so there's my thank you, and I'm just going to pop that on there. Now I could have stamped that in rich raspberry or crushed curry to pick up those colours, but this in the background is Old Olive and Mossy Meadow. So I'm going to pop that up with some dimensionals, and I'm not going to add any bling to this, I don't think. Just going to pop that in the middle. On this one that I did yesterday, I did add the gorgeous little butterflies, but I think this is busy enough with that detail. So let's pop that on. Okay, and you can have it in the centre. I tend to favour it slightly off to the right, but that's just me. I go through phases like that. So there we go. There's our first card. Hopefully you can see that okay. The second item I'm going to make is a bookmark. This is one of the strips that goes with this set. So on this piece of paper there are 3 of these images and 2 of these in the middle, and I said yesterday that would make a fabulous bookmark, and that's what I'm going to do. So I have cut just a strip. I've got 2 here ready. I've got a strip of rich raspberry, which I've cut just slightly bigger than my design, and the measurement of this, I just was guided by the image really, is 5.2 centimetres or 2 1/16. I have trimmed the bottom bit off, and what I'm going to do is I want a fancy top here. So one of the things I've got is from our designer tags dies, is this tag here. What I'm going to do is just use the top end of this to cut a pretty top that's got a hole in it. So although this is obviously a complete tag in its own right, what I'm actually going to do is just feed this the other way round, feed my card in underneath one end, okay, and then over the other, and all I'm going to do is put this top end through my die cutting machine. And in fact I could probably use my mini machine here. So hi to anybody else who's joined us. Okay, this has been working all day today, this little mini machine. Okay, so I'm just going to feed this through. I'm not really measuring it because I know this is longer than I need. Hi Lynn, thanks for joining us. I'm just going to make a cute little bookmark. So I've got my base plate and a clear plate. I'm just going to line this up, and I'm sorry if it's slightly in shadow, and if that's any better, but you can see that or not really. There, maybe you can, if I just lift this out. So I've got this coming over the top and just this end underneath. I'm not going to take it all the way down anyway, so you could actually leave it as it is. Just want to make sure it's roughly straight. Okay, popping my top plate on. I'm just turning it around so that I can get to it easier. Okay, like so. Let's put that down here for a minute. Okay, so now I've got this really pretty top. Let's put a piece of white behind it. Now we used to have our tag topper punches that you could use if this was 5 centimeters or just under 2 inches. You could slot those in. So if you have one of those, you could definitely use that. Unfortunately, those are now retired. They were around for quite a few years, but using something like that, so this is from the designer Tags Dies, is a really nice effect. So let's just have a look and see. So this piece is just going to pop onto there, and I'm just going to give it an equal area around it, like so. And I'm actually going to cut the bit at the bottom off. Now, rather than waste this little bit here, thank you, Lynn, I'm going to actually cut out a butterfly, which I may or may not put on the top. So I think what I'm going to do is actually stick this down. Now I could emboss this as well if wanted to, that'd be quite effective, but I'm just going to stick this on as is. I'll just use some seal, like so. So I'm going to stick this down and then trim off the excess. And I'm just really just doing this by eye. I measured my rich raspberry piece just so it was bigger than this panel here. Okay, let's trim that off. I'm going to use my trimmer so I don't end up with a wonky edge. Don't want to do that. And just trim that there, like so. If you had a corner rounder, you could round those corners. You've got our trio punch, you could use that. So I'm just going to cut out this little butterfly, and I'm either going to pop it on the front, or I've got a piece of card that I'm going to pop on the back. I'm going to stamp it first with a sentiment and then put it on the back. So my butterfly may go on the front or the back. And bookmarks are always great fun to create. They're nice and quick and simple. If you've got strips of designer paper, or you have any leftover strips of paper that you've created, so maybe you've done some background designs, anything like that, just going to pop this through, then a bookmark is a really easy way to use that up. And because I've got that extra little bit of rich raspberry card, just going to cut that butterfly out. And this butterfly also comes from the designer labels die set. Let's just pop out those tiny little bits. There we go. And obviously you could die cut some flowers, anything else you would like to do. Okay, so let's have a look. I'm going to bend my wings up a little bit on this butterfly. So I'll let you decide whether it needs to go on the front or the back. I'm going to stamp a sentiment onto here, and I think I'm going to use that lovely sentiment that I used yesterday. It's perfectly a nice, a nice fit and a nice sentiment to use. So let's grab that. And pop that on. Okay. And I'm going to stick with Mossy Meadow just as a bit of a contrast. Like so. Hopefully that's fairly straight. I'm leaving space for me to write a message underneath, or a sentiment. This is going to go onto the back. Now what I really could do with is some rich raspberry ribbon, and I don't actually have any. I've had a look through my ribbon display and I have no rich raspberry at all. How bad is that? So I do have some mossy meadow, so I'm going to thread this with mossy meadow. So Lynn says on the front for the butterfly, what do we think? Maybe just there? Yeah, I think you're right. I'm thinking either there or at the bottom. Right, front is a good consensus of opinion. Okay, there is my design there. I think I might just stamp one of these little flowers across here. Now this does actually have a matching punch. I'm just going to stamp these across the bottom, just to fill it in. Now if I had a spare bit of designer paper, I could use that as well. Let's put one in there. There we go. Okay. Hi Jill, good evening to you. Thank you for joining us. So I could colour that in. I'm going to pop my butterfly on, but let me just pop my thread through. Oh, I do, but I haven't got, have I got rich raspberry marker to hand? No. Oh, yes I have. Cunning idea. So I do have my blends pens. What I was going to do is use some mossy meadow, but that's a great idea, Lynn. 10 out of 10. So here is some white ribbon. Let's grab this, and I'm just going to try my dark rich raspberry, and I'm just going to leave the edge white and just inking this up. And the nice thing about the blends pens is that the ink goes right the way through. So this is on its way out. I can hear it, can you hear it? So it's not quite as deep as it could be, but it will do the job. So you could also use ink, but you will need to leave time for that to dry before you apply it to your project. Okay, just want a little bit more. Yes, let's put that. I might have a spare one ready, but I won't put it back on my unit. I will check that first and then order one accordingly. Oh, that's okay, Brenda, don't worry. I'll show you the card we made to start with, and we're just making a bookmark. Just going to have a little bit more. You could also do striped ribbon with this. If you just put a ruler along there, you can just draw a line. So you could have white and raspberry ribbon, or whatever colour blends you have. You can also use re-inkers, just pop a little bit of re-inker into a small container and pop your ribbon into there. Let it all soak up, but you definitely need to let that dry before you go anywhere near it. Okay, so thank you for that suggestion, Lynn. Okay, so I've got my rich raspberry ribbon and that's dry already. Just trimming those ends off. I might trim it down further, but trimming the white edges off. So just going to thread this through. So what I like to do for my bookmarks is fold it in two, pop it through the slot or the hole, and then, no, I'm not going to do it that way, I'm going to do it this way. Just going to fold it as I had and pop it through, and then I'm going to put some twine around that and then open that up. So I could leave it either really long, but I have some baker's twine, which is here. Baker's twine, a little bit of fluff. You could use another length of ribbon if you wanted to. So just lay that flat, bring your baker's twine round, and I could colour my baker's twine as well. I could colour that rich raspberry, or I could colour that in a deep yellow, so Mango Melody or something. Okay, I like to do that nice and tight and then tie that in a double knot so it's not going anywhere. Oh, that was a good pun, wasn't it? And then you can either cut that short, or I quite like to make this a little bow for decoration. I'll lift it up so you can see it a little bit better. So let's just do that and that, like that. Okay, trim that down. Got a bit of glue on my scissors, I need to clean them. And then trim that out like that. So there's the front of our bookmark. Hope you can see that okay. There's the back. And then I'm going to pop the butterfly on. I'm thinking there is a good place. In that little gap there, maybe, along that branch. So for this I'm just going to use a little bit of glue, just some wet glue, like so, just the smallest amount, just wiping off any excess. And if you're adhering 2 layers with some glue, your best bet is just give that 10 or 20 seconds just to start drying, and then it's less likely to move around, so it goes slightly tacky, but it's not so tacky that it won't stick permanently. Let's put my blends pens away, so just give that a minute to go tacky, and I'm going to pop that in there at that angle. Okay, and can you see that sticks quite quickly? I mean, obviously it will move if you move it around, but if you just put it straight on with wet glue, it has a lot more movement, which is useful sometimes, but not others. So there we go. Now, if this is a bookmark, I don't like to put any gems on here because I don't want it to ruin the person's book. If they, you know, if it's a hardback book and they shut it hard, then they'll have little indentations. So I like to keep it flat. Obviously that butterfly will go flat, but you can, now it's stuck, you can lift up those wings. And you could pop that in a little cellophane bag. or you could laminate this. I would laminate it before obviously you add anything else, or you have to flatten out the butterfly. I've got my little, ooh, that'll teach me to knock it. You've got the sentiment on the back, which you can colour in if you want to, or you can leave it as is. And there it is. So from those sheets you could get 4 bookmarks and, as I say, 12 cards like this, just from those 2 sheets. The other card that we made earlier, I just need to put this inside in. Put that to one side. I've got an inner ready. And if I had any spare paper, then I would add a strip of that at the bottom, or you could stamp your sentiment on the inside like I did yesterday with the thank you card, which says little card, big thanks. I'm just going to keep this one plain and ready. And there we go. So this is the card we made earlier, Brenda. I popped this layer through the embossing folder. Let me put my glasses on. Thank you, Lynn. Yes, it does make a nice little thank you gift, doesn't it, together? And this one is just slightly bigger. So if you wanted to pop it in the envelope with this one, then you would need to trim this down a little bit. Our envelopes are quite generous, so there is a gap top and bottom. But what you would need to do is just measure that, so that if you wanted to put them all together as an item, then that's what you need to do. Okay, so that it fitted in the envelope, but it works on its own in the same way. And that was the ones that we did yesterday. So loads of ideas with these papers. We will be back tomorrow, Wednesday morning. Thanks, Carol. And thanks for letting me know about my volume. Yes, we'll be back again tomorrow with another design. I've got something in mind for that. That's always the nice thing, is when you have papers that you can just keep creating with without a huge amount of effort. And these are our celebration papers, available with a £45 purchase between now and the end of February, so 28th of February. I say now, I do mean Thursday, that's when it starts. Demonstrators can earn them already, but customers, if you place an order £45 more, you can choose these papers, but there are also some fun stamp sets to choose, so check them all out first. So my blog will have the new catalogues online for you to download, and the catalogues are being sent out over the next couple of days. Oh, let me bring those down a bit. That's a little bit too far away, wasn't it? So thank you so much. I whittled on a little bit more. I should have finished at 7:30, so apologies for going over. But I'll be back again tomorrow morning, Wednesday at 10 AM for a few more designs using this set of paper. And I might introduce you to a new stamp set on Thursday. So I do hope you're able to join me. Do take care and have a nice evening if you're watching of an evening, and also if you're watching on catch up, have a great morning, afternoon or evening, depending on when you're watching. And I look forward to crafting with you really soon. It's great to be back crafting on a regular basis. I'm just finalising all of the class in the boxes. They're all stacked here ready to go. Just got to print out the instructions, and I will be releasing the January class in the box shortly, and I'm very excited for that because it's something completely different. So if you struggle for men's cards, if you have adventurers in your family, whether they're cyclists, mountaineers, climbers, anything like that, then this could be the class for you. Thank you so much. Take care. I look forward to crafting with you again really soon. Thanks for watching.